this moment, I just hit record. Usually I start recording at the start of lecture. Forgot today, but for the very first slide. But lectures are recorded. I'll post them. I'll talk a little bit today, though, about the importance of coming to class. I think it's really important to come here to lecture to help stay caught up in the course. I think it's very common that if you, especially when lectures are recorded, to skip class thinking you'll watch it later that day, and then next thing, a week or two goes by. So if you're in the habit of missing class and watching the lecture video relatively soon after class, then I think that's a fine way to go about the class. But if you really need the routine of coming to class, hearing lecture, and having that be part of your day, then I would certainly hope that coming to class is an important part and something that we make time for. Okay, so quick introduction to me. This is my laser pointer on here. So this is in front of Ohio Stadium this year. I have wife, 2 kids, 5th grader and 7th grader. This is us at a Guardians game this year. The interesting thing with the Guardians game this year is the day after the Jose Ramirez knocking out the dude at second base. So we were one game away from getting to see some real fireworks. This is me, my son, daughter, in front of Baker Lab at Cornell, where I spent 5.5 years doing my PhD. But I did my undergrad here at OSU. So this is kind of funny. My very first general chemistry class was in this room. Looked a lot different back then. It was before they remodeled it. It had those old desktops, that you couldn't fold down. The most uncomfortable room ever was this room. So it's slightly more comfortable now, though maybe still not spectacular. The one great thing about this class this semester, we only have 92 students currently on the roster in a room that seats 200, so at least we get to spread out a little bit in class. So we have a relatively small class. Usually my classes are in the 250 to 350 range, so I'm really excited to have a class less than 100. Hopefully we get a chance to get to know each other this semester in a way with a class at the 350 size usually doesn't happen. Apparently people online are saying I always show pictures of my dog, so I felt like I had to show a picture of my dog. So this is, let me even zoom in, the video feed isn't spectacular. That's Nick Chubb. Apparently I cursed Nick Chubb by naming my dog Nick Chubb, but we call him Chubb. And then this is Tipsy and Molly. Let me go back to the laser pointer. So this is Tipsy and that's Molly. There's probably a joke there, but this is them begging for some kind of treat or something. So once people start saying on Rate My Professors that I show pictures of my pets, I better keep showing pictures of my pets. So there they are. I'll try to work them in. It was funny last semester because I showed a couple pictures of the dog, and then of course Nick Chubb got hurt, and so I had a sad picture of my dog. So I don't know. But anyways, so let's get into some parts of the class. One of the most important parts to do this week is making sure we set up the e-text and the online homework access. You've actually already paid for this access through enrolling in the course through something called Carmen Books. So you don't have to pay for this service again. So make sure that if you're ever prompted to pay for Carmen, that we probably misclick somewhere along the way. So to do this, you're going to go into Carmen. In fact, all right, so I think we'll try to. This is going to be awful. Hopefully this is just today. Okay. Let me turn this up. How's that? It's a little better, I guess. Okay, so the labs and recitations. So labs don't meet this week. They start meeting next Tuesday. Everybody in this class has labs on Tuesday and recitations on Tuesday. The recitations do start this week. So recitations start tomorrow at your scheduled time. It's the 55-minute session on your schedule that meets tomorrow. The 3-hour lab is the session that you don't have to go to tomorrow. So the 3-hour block, you can skip that. If you do miss a recitation, you get 2 drops out of the 10 graded sessions. So you don't have to worry if you have 2 absences, and the drops are intended to be an absence policy. So try to save those for the days you're going to have to miss due to being sick or having something come up. If you do need to take a drop, you don't have to email anybody to get the drop. You can just miss, and then it'll automatically be dropped by Carmen. So here's my lecture information, office hour info. So like I mentioned, lectures were recorded here. Generally will be posted later that day. They take usually an hour or so to actually upload and process. My office hours are Monday and Friday, 2 to 3 p.m., Wednesday mornings, 8:30 to 9:30 a.m., and those are in 2047 McPherson. So we have Evans, next door is Celeste, where our labs are. Next door to that is McPherson. That's on the second floor. If you want to stop by anytime, no appointments are needed. You can drop by anytime you have questions or anytime there's anything I can help you with. Feel free to email me. I respond to email pretty quickly throughout the semester. So if you have even a homework question, any questions on getting started with anything, feel free to email me. The only topic that I sometimes struggle to answer are lab questions. So the lab staff are usually better contacts, so the lab supervisors. They have an email, the Chem 1210 lab supervisors at osu.edu. That's the best email when you have like a big lab question or a problem with the due date, if you have to miss a lab, or if you need to schedule makeup arrangements, if you are ill, miss a due date, that's where you're going to want to email to get those things extended for lab. You can email your lab TA with questions about intricate details if you're not sure about a question on a lab or a lab topic. If you have a small question about lab, that might be best for your lab TA. I can try to help with lab questions, but sometimes I don't know the specific ins and outs of every lab experiment, and I don't control the policies for lab either. Lab does have a separate syllabus, so just, again, make sure to go to the lab staff when you have big lab issues. So the TAs all hold their office hours in 170 Celeste. Are there any TAs here this morning? So we have a couple TAs here. There's one in the back too. Recitation TAs, right? Want to introduce yourself? Got through you guys.
I'm Erin. I'm a second-year grad student. I'm Julie. I'm also a second-year grad student. I'm Rain. I'm a first-year grad student.
Thanks, guys. So the recitations, there's a slide on it, so I don't want to get too far ahead, but you'll work on activities with your TAs, hopefully have a chance to review the material and work on some problems that help get us towards as good of exam scores as we can get to. So the TAs all hold their office hours in 170 Celeste. It's in the back hallway of Celeste Lab. You can actually meet with any of the TAs in our class. That room will be staffed Monday to Fridays, usually 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. There'll be a schedule on the door so you can try to find whatever 1210 TA is in the room. Though usually a 1220 TA can usually help you too. But you can meet with any TA in that room throughout this semester to get help throughout the course. So you're not limited to just your own TAs, but also all of our other TAs during their office hours. So again, lecture attendance not required for credit, but again, I think coming to class is really important. I think it's a great way to engage and meet your classmates and have that be a helpful part of the course as well. I'm going to set up quizzes in Carmen. Actually, they're going to be surveys in Carmen that'll go along with most lectures that I can use for some engaging questions throughout class if I just want to kind of do a little poll question. These aren't graded in any way. These are just for pure engagement processes or purposes. And then also, I think just kind of knowing that I'll know if you're here might be a good reason to come to class. Not that that's going to change any part of the grading, but I think it's just a nice incentive to know that that I'll know if you're here and can check sort of lecture attendance and just see how generally attendance is throughout a semester through having these surveys. But then also I can ask like questions on the survey, like do you have questions or concerns or problems in the class that I can help address with each one of these surveys, so that if you do the survey and there is something that you're stuck on, if there's a piece of material, if there's a topic that you don't understand, you can go ahead and include that in your survey and hopefully help get that addressed in our future lectures. So we have one soon. I'll talk about it in a couple minutes, how we can, the first survey just kind of asks where we're from and some general information. Hopefully these quizzes help us all be accountable towards each other so that I can be held accountable if there's things that you guys are stuck on, and then I can just, again, hope to have this be an encouraging way to help you guys come to class. One of the things we've been talking about as a department, and we've done this in the past a little bit, is grade lecture attendance. I think from your guys' vantage point, you'd be like, don't do that. Don't make us come. And I don't want to make any student come to class. I think that's kind of, one of the nice parts of being a college student is you kind of get to pick and choose what classes you go to. But at the same time, coming to class is really important. I just want it to be something that's encouraged. Okay, so let's talk online homework for a minute. So online homework's 10% of the course. The way I set my assignments up is to try to have them go lecture by lecture, and mostly be multiple choice reading style problems that aren't entirely the most challenging type of problems I could assign. So if you look in the textbook as you're reading, there's always those like reading questions and examples in the chapter. Our book has some worked out examples, and they're usually followed up with a multiple choice question or a couple multiple choice questions in the readings. Those are primarily the questions I put on the online homework, or the reading questions you'll see in the readings. If you actually look at the reading assignments I've set up, the reading assignments are ungraded, but they just kind of show lecture by lecture what topics we're covering. They give you a chance just to stay up with the sections in the book, kind of know what we're covering lecture by lecture. If you go through the reading assignments and you go through these problems and get to them in the readings, you'll see almost the same problems in the Mastering Chemistry assignment. And I'm not saying this so that you can just go to the book, see the answer, go to the homework, enter answer, but more to be encouraged to know that if you read the book, work through those problems, understand those problems, then the homework will be very easy. It'll be like a second chance to do those problems, maybe like it's a mini quiz, even though a lot of the questions will be pretty similar. There's a handful of questions, if there's, let's say 8 questions on a quiz, there's probably 2 or 3 questions that aren't exactly directly in the book somewhere else that you can easily answer just by having seen them before. So not every question will be as easily answerable as just seeing it in the book, but the homework will really just mean, or be best done by doing some reading, and then they're also best done after class. So it's kind of designed to be over the material we had just seen in class, as opposed to being ahead of class. So sometimes instructors set up homework to cover the material before class. I'd rather you come to class, learn it, see it once, maybe reinforce it with some reading, then reinforce it with homework problems. Okay, so again, there's some ungraded assignments in Carmen. A couple of the ungraded assignments that appear due this Thursday night are just introductory items to Mastering Chemistry, the online homework platform, and then just a basic introduction to chemistry, like a chemistry review activity. Those 2 Thursday assignments, they have due dates, so don't think a due date means something's worth credit. The due date is just to be a marker that if you do those by Thursday, they might help you with the first assignment due Friday morning. You don't really have to do them, but you might just take a glance just to see what those assignments are about. And then the reading assignments are scheduled. They have due dates too, but those are just kind of lining up with the start of lectures so that you know kind of what we're covering. So the graded homework assignments are called I think they're problem set, or it's like lecture homework. It's based on the lecture number that it's due. So there's problem set 3 is the first assignment due Friday, and there's problem set 4 due next Monday. So these assignments should take you about 15 to 30 minutes each. These shouldn't take you much time at all. The more time you spent reading through the assignment and the reading assignment, I think will save you time later doing the quiz. So I think the longer the homework takes you might just say, well, let's spend a little bit of time reading before we get there, and that might help us out. The grading is, again, most of the questions are multiple choice. So if there's 4 multiple choice questions, then there's a 25% hit per wrong answer. But these questions are generally pretty straightforward. So I don't think getting too many cases where you exhaust, 2 or 3 attempts on these problems will happen much throughout the course. If there's any problems that you run into where you think a problem is misleading or confusing, last semester I probably removed 15 questions from the homework sets just for questions that were a little misleading or confusing. If there's anything that you think was misleading, let me know. I can double check and see if I think it's confusing. I can look against the core stats and see if a lot of your classmates also missed it. And if that's the case, I can click the problem off and have it be ungraded for the semester. So I'll try to be as fair as possible. I don't want to trick you guys on these homework. The goal of the homework is to get averages in the 90+% range just through the hard work of staying caught up with the class. There is a penalty if you're late on the assignment, but only on the points earned after the due date. So if you do the assignment for Friday, I think there's 6 or 7 questions on the assignment. If you can only get to 3 of them before the start of class where the due date is, then you still get full credit on those 3 problems. Only the 4 problems that you do after the due date would be hit with the penalty, which is 1% per hour late. So if you get to the problems a couple hours after lecture, very, very small penalty. So don't feel like if you don't know how to do a problem before class, you might want to wait till class, get your question answered, and then answer it right after class or in the next hour or 2 and have a very small penalty applied to just that one question. If any circumstances arise, let me know in terms of illness or situations where we can extend due dates. I can extend due dates for an individual for good reasons to do so. So just let me know if anything comes up and I can extend due dates as needed. So the homework problems are designed to look like, and oftentimes are identical to the practice and exam prep exercises in the textbook. I haven't clicked the link to sync the assignments, so I'm going to do that later today, and those will have all the due dates appear in your Carmen calendar. So if you logged into Carmen and said, I haven't seen anything about homework, those due dates will soon appear in your Carmen calendar. Once you set up your online text access and you get into Mastering Chemistry, there's a separate Mastering Chemistry calendar where you can see some of those due dates as well. So if you're looking for extra problems, these assignments really are kind of minimal. What I have provided, and I think these are almost more valuable to do instead of like extra end of chapter problems. I think most of you guys probably know, every textbook and every science class has the chapter examples and they have the end of chapter problems. And those end of chapter problems can sometimes be convoluted, tricky, challenging. Those are the problems I don't like to assign, because if you go into those problems, those are the ones that you enter the answer in the homework system and it tells you it's wrong because you forgot to put a space in or you didn't format something right. Those questions are always incredibly frustrating. So if you want to do end of chapter exercises, you're more than welcome. There's 100 questions at the end of each chapter. The instructor that I took general chemistry from used to say, just do every problem. And I'm like, okay. But seriously, if you are stuck on a chapter, literally go to question 1 in the end of chapter problems and then just plow your way through. And I guarantee you that will work. I also guarantee that it'll take like 6 to 8 hours, but may not be the best use of time, but that is a way to learn the material very, very well. Another way I think is just to read, do the problems and the homework problems, understand those problems, and then maybe do some self-quizzing. The self-guided quizzing you can do by something in Carmen. I was going to click on this. I'm not going to click out and show Carmen again, but there's a daily quiz tab in the lecture modules, and it has like a quiz. I think they start this Thursday. Not graded. These are just PDF quizzes. There's a key provided. There's some video solutions as well for some of these quizzes. But you can just do a quiz kind of with almost each day of the week. As we get through the semester, they become more like every other day. But it's just a chance to take kind of what look like exam-style problems like this Thursday, this Friday. So it's like a way of doing some practice exam problems well before we get to the midterm to help us make sure we're learning what we want you guys to learn. I think one of the things that sometimes takes everybody off guard a little bit in a course like this is that, we'll teach you a lot of concepts and we really want you to like learn and understand and be able to use all of those concepts. Like we want you to be able to solve almost any of those end of chapter style problems or any of the problems that you come across. We kind of want you to understand how to solve all those problems without any outside resources other than like a periodic table and a couple of like useful conversion factors. So to get there, self-quizzing is going to be a way to really help us get there. So how do we study in a course like this? I think we got to stay caught up. We just can't fall behind first off, I think, because I think each chapter is going to take some time and we're going to want to devote that time, spread it out before the midterm. We don't want to do a majority of our studying the day or 2 days before the midterm because it's going to lead to cramming. We're going to forget a lot of the information we learned that way. So let's try to stay caught up. Let's try to build from what we know. I have a file in the lecture slides on useful information that you might want to recall from high school chemistry. High school chemistry is a prerequisite for this class, but we really do kind of start at the ground level, but sometimes it's useful just to go through and read and just kind of remember like what protons, electrons, neutrons we're referring to, how the proton kind of defines what the atom is, defines the element. Just reading through some basic kind of chemistry that I'm sure everybody's learned, but maybe has forgotten about. And then we're going to almost come back to a lot of those ideas and build from them in the class. So it's really helpful to build from what we know. If we have to learn everything for the first time in a class like this, I think that's where it becomes very challenging. But I'm sure you've all heard a lot of the concepts we're going to teach in this class. You probably just forgot them. But that's okay. But I think if we can recall them before we even get there to help us have a building point, a branching point that we can build off of. So you can use the reading assignments, again, not for credit. In the readings, you'll find these self-assessment questions, exam prep questions. Those are the best questions to do for sure. That's why I make them the homework problems, or a majority of those end up being the homework problems. Try to never be confused. If there's ever a topic or a problem that you just don't understand, I guarantee you we can make sense of it. So just come ask questions, search for online videos to help you through it, search for the item in the textbook. Just try to never just be like, I'm just not going to understand this, I'm going to move on. Let's try to get it. I guarantee you we can have you understand it. So after lecture, one of the nice things with recording lectures, you could rewatch lecture if you wanted to. I don't know how useful that would be, but make sure to come to class, watch at least once. So at least participate in lecture once, more times if needed. And then just try to read, maybe try that lecture assignment due for the next lecture. The daily quizzes can help make sure that we're getting practice, and then we can just repeat the study cycle as we go throughout the course. Hopefully, minimal studying is needed when we get to midterms. The more we need to study when it comes time for a midterm, I think cues me into saying, what should I do differently for midterm 2 then? How can I go about my weeks before midterm 2 in a different way to help reduce the amount of studying I need to do the weekend before? next exam. Daily quizzing is, there's a book called Make It Stick, fantastic book. If you just want to read a book on study habit suggestions that uses the original literature from cognitive psychology. But if you like reading about the science of learning, and if you want to make learning an important part of your future, I highly recommend this book. But this book, one of the things it talks about is self-quizzing. And just like the forced recall of information is one of the best ways to try to learn and recall information. It's like the easiest way to remember all your passwords is to continually use your passwords. The easiest way to forget all your passwords is to never use your passwords, right? Well, with information, we want to make sure that we're always using the information we're learning. The more we use it, the better we're going to learn it, the more it's going to be available when we need to recall that information. Over 70 quizzes can help us get there. These are all multiple choice style or similar style questions that you'll see on the midterms. They're all old midterm questions from the past. So frequent quizzing, definitely a proven way to help learn. Exam information, we have 4 midterms this semester. Traditionally, we've had 3. I think 4 is a little bit better because it'll help us stay on task a little bit better. The exams will cover a little bit less material each. But 4 midterms, they're 10% of the course each. The final exam's 20% of the course. Midterms not cumulative, they're just going to cover the new material. But the final exam, though, will be cumulative, and we'll talk about reviewing and stuff as we get closer to the final exam. The syllabus has due dates, or the exam dates, but they're weeks 4, 7, 9, and 12. The only one that's a little bit weird is the one 9 comes after 2 weeks after midterm 2. So we go 3 weeks midterm 1, 3 more weeks midterm 2, 2 weeks right before spring break. We take midterm 3. We wanted to have midterm 3 be not the day we get back from spring break, or the week we get back from spring break. And then midterm 4 is 3 weeks after midterm 3. So about 3 weeks in between, except for that one midterm with just 2 weeks. We do require like a calculator like this or a TI 83 or 84. Like one of the silly things, I don't understand why we can't be more inclusive of calculators, but very specific calculators are needed, TI 30s or 83 or 84. So make sure to have one of those calculators by the time we get to week 4. This, if you need to buy a calculator, is like $15 at Target. So by far, get the TI 30 if you just need to buy one specifically for the class. Do it sooner rather than later, just because we might have a couple hundred people looking to buy calculators like Sunday before that first midterm. The exam's mostly multiple choice. There's some numerical data entry questions where it'll say enter your answer as a numerical value. But there's no typing out a word or answer. When we get to like naming molecules, you don't have to spell. So those choices are always by multiple choice. So it's nice to know in a class like this that that all the exams are either multiple choice or just data entry, like entering a number. So recitation, a little bit more information on recitation. It's 10% of the class. So I don't think I mentioned homework was 10%, recitation's 10%, and then the exams are 60% total. I'll slide in a moment. Lab is the remaining 20%. So recitations are meet for that 55-minute. It says lab meeting on your schedule, but it's really a meeting in a small classroom with about 25 total students maximum. Exams are given during the recitation session during exam week. So for 4 weeks out of the semester, we just use recitation for exams. The other weeks we use it for activities that you'll work on with your classmates and TA. We have an activity prepared for tomorrow over some chapter 1 topics and also an introduction to the course. Attendance is given based on attending and participating. There's no quizzes the non-exam weeks. It's just a matter of showing up, participating, and being on time, and just generally working through the activity with your classmates and TA. Again, 2 drops. You can bring questions to recitation too. You can start recitation off. The TAs usually will ask if you have any questions, so feel free to bring questions if you have them over the material that we can work on before we get into the weekly activity. Outside of course, exam weeks, where we just have to start right away with the exam. So lab, 20% of the class. They have separate announcements, they have separate staff. Make sure to stay caught up with their announcements. They even have a certain way they want you to email them, so make sure to read through their announcements in the syllabus on how to send them an email, because they want it sent to the main Chem 1210 lab supervisor's email. They want to know what lab section you're in and some other information. So see that information if you need to get help from them. And then be aware that the lab users turn it in, so don't copy and paste work from students in the past. That's an easy way to get caught. So just know that that's used. To turn it in as that service that like checks the work submitted versus past work submitted and other online sources. Don't try to change your data throughout a class too. So like if you collect your data and you think some number was misrecorded or miscalculated or misdetermined, just the data you record in lab, just use that. Don't feel like you have to fudge your data. Usually the data itself, the quality of your results isn't that highly graded anyways. We already went through Carmen, I think, enough for today. So the Getting Started link is the link you want to click on for setting up your access. In the syllabus, there's a schedule for lecture. It also has other schedules like a recitation schedule. The daily quizzes is another useful feature in Carmen. I already mentioned the Learning Resource Center. If you have any general help or concerns about study habits, the Dentist Learning Center at OSU has great staff that can help with learning strategies for this class or any other classes you might be in that you need some help in. And then if you're unsure about anything, generally try to check the syllabus, check announcements. You can email us if you have questions. I'm happy to answer emails. I try, like some teachers are jerks. If there's an answer that's you can answer in the syllabus, or a question that can be answered in the syllabus, I'll answer it for you. I'm not going to be mean or anything. So feel free to email me anytime you have questions if you're stuck on anything. The first week is always a little bit getting settled in, so feel free if you're stuck on anything just to let us know. In particular with that textbook access. If you're stuck on anything, there's even a file for getting help in that textbook area and that Getting Started link that has some tech office hours for Pearson, the book publisher. So there's a way to get some tech office hours. I think some of them are even in person. They used to all be in person, but they moved to Zoom, but they may all be on Zoom. But that's an easy way of getting, sometimes we need to figure out how to change settings on your computer. Sometimes if you had a class like this in the past, the settings are screwed up. So if you need help, make sure to look for it for getting that textbook access set up. Yes.
I'm gonna kind of shout.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm on my Canvas right now, and I don't see like the lecture portion of the Canvas on. And I asked a couple of my peers, and they said that they couldn't see.
Okay. So when do you,
I refreshed it like 2 or 3 times as well.
So what part of Carmen are you on?
The chem page in general, and then I went under modules, and then I don't see like the lecture section.
Okay. So I know you guys can't see what I'm clicking, but so we're going to lecture. You see the lecture, so you don't see the lecture module.
No, I just have the laboratory, and then the exams, disability, supplemental lecture videos, and then Getting Started.
Oh, that is. Yeah, it's funny, I can see them, but I don't see them. Oh, okay, I see why. Okay, it should now be available.
Okay.
There's a hidden publish button that wasn't
Okay,
clicked.
I have it now.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. And then the recitation activity is the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Though you didn't need that, but that's now active. Okay, awesome, that's fantastic. Well, I have kind of 2 things I want to do before we get into maybe some topics on chapter 1. One is just to introduce ourselves, and I thought I had a slide on this and I kind of missed it, or maybe I deleted it by accident. But one of the things I wanted to do is just try to introduce ourselves to each other. The things that I usually think of, like if we did an icebreaker, you might do this in recitation where you'll go around the room saying where you're from, what year you're in or what your major is, what your career goal is, and then maybe something fun you did over break. So why don't you guys, for a couple minutes, just chat with your neighbors, just introduce yourselves, and then maybe talk about where you guys are from and what your majors are. So talk amongst yourselves for a couple minutes. also keep stopping and start recording. So about 8 hours of time are left for studying for the class. Now we're probably gonna sadly use about half of that for labs. I wish that wasn't the case, but labs are gonna take some of your time outside the class reading, doing lab reports. But the other half of the time, and it isn't much, that's why I wanna minimally have about 15, 30 minutes per lecture for homework. I want you guys to spend 30 to 60 minutes reading, maybe 15 minutes or so taking quizzes throughout the week, a couple times throughout the week. That's gonna be, I think, the best way to go about learning in the class. And the roughly 4 hours or so that we're gonna have for the lecture part of the class. 4 hours a week isn't much, but if we're using it for reading, working problems, actively problem solving, we're gonna get a lot out of that time. Thanks for doing the survey though. Curious to see where everybody's from. Probably a lot of people from Ohio, but I'm curious to see what majors. Just I guess by hands, how many of you guys are like pre-health, pre-med of some sort, pre-dental? That's a good chunk of the class. Class like this is really designed to get you to 1220, which is designed to get you to OChem, which is designed to get you to biochem, which is designed to get you into med school. So a lot of these classes here, maybe the science isn't super relevant, but at the same time, if you're a doctor prescribing a drug, I would really like you to know molecular structure. I think you would want to know what it is that is an organic molecule is if you're going to be prescribing them. So I think it's important. Okay, so I think, I just want to talk about this slide, maybe the next slide, then we'll get out of here for today. So let me also, I guess before this, any general questions before we move on to anything? Because we had a great question that solved one huge problem earlier, so if we can solve other huge problems, that'd be great.
I have one more question.
Sure.
When do your office hours start?
They'll start today. So okay. If you have questions today, I always stick around after class too. So if you have questions, like a quick question after class, you can always stick around after class and try to get that answered. So if you have a little question after class today or any day throughout class, I'm happy to answer questions before class too. I'm usually here early. So if you have questions before class, feel free to come up and get them answered. Okay, so a little bit about chapter 1, because we do got to get through all of chapter 1 this week. So I wanted to make sure we got a little bit into chapter 1 today, but most of this is just the simple reminder. Of course, chemistry is a study of matter. It's a study of the composition of matter, the reactions of matter, some of the properties of matter. We talk a lot about the atomic perspective. You start thinking about the atomic and molecular level in a class like this. You probably, if you took AP chemistry, were thinking at the atomic and molecular level too. Even high school chemistry was probably showing structures, Lewis structures of molecules, trying to get you to picture what things look like in terms of their three-dimensional shape and appearances, or things we'll be getting into as we go throughout the class. Organic chemistry is all about writing structures of molecules too. So as you advance into organic chemistry, you're going to see a lot of perspective of structure. Why study chemistry? Well, as we mentioned earlier, it gets you to the next step to get you to the next step to get you to the next step. So it's just a prerequisite of a prerequisite of a prerequisite. But it is important to lay the foundation for those future classes. I think if you just jump into OChem without some of the foundations of general chemistry, you may get stuck on a lot of details of structure if we don't start learning them here in a class like this. But of course, chemistry itself, I think, is important to the fields of energy, to coming up with new materials, coming up with new types of fuel cells, coming up with new types of batteries are really important areas of research and development. Biochemistry, of course, the study of drugs, of course, developing new legal drugs, of course, is a beneficial to society thing that we do within science. Obviously, the study of medicine linked to pharmacy, pharmacology, really important uses of chemistry. Technology in terms of food storage, food preparation, in terms of additives. Maybe those aren't great all the time. Maybe we don't think of preservatives as being good, but they do make food not spoil, and food helps people live. So I think that's, in general, if we're doing it well, doing good chemistry, that's an important area of chemistry too, are making sure that we have food supplies that can last and get us into tomorrow. So I think there's a lot of important areas of chemistry where chemistry is important to a lot of different areas of society. One of the things, I guess I'll do this on Wednesday, we had a turnover with our lab demonstration staff, so usually I'd blow up a balloon on the first day, but we'll do that the second day. So at the start of class Wednesday, we're gonna blow up a balloon and see our first chemical reaction in purpose in front of us. And then I think we'll get into this terminology next time, of just getting into what atoms are, what molecules are. You'll talk about a little bit about this information in recitation tomorrow as well. So we'll pick up from kind of a reaction this slide as we get into class on Wednesday. All right, guys, thanks for coming to class today, and look forward to the rest of the semester.